My name is Tiffany McKenzie. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a plumber in Austin, Texas. 3 months ago, I thought I understood exactly where I stood in my family. The practical sister, the one who fixes pipes, shows up in work boots, and lives on the wrong side of town. I also thought my family loved my daughter the way they said they did. Turns out I was wrong on both counts. I live in a small apartment in East Austin with my 8-year-old daughter, Lily. She's not my biological child. I adopted her from the foster care system 2 years ago, right after my husband died in an accident. Those first days as a widow, I moved through life like a ghost. I'd come home to an apartment that felt like a tomb. No sounds except the hum of the fridge and the occasional car passing by outside. I ate standing at the counter, slept on top of the covers, and sometimes I'd go a whole weekend without saying a word to anyone. Then Lily showed up, a tiny girl with big brown eyes and a trash bag full of clothes that weren't really hers. The social worker said her mom had disappeared again, that there was a history of drugs, that nobody really knew who her father was. When they brought her to my door, she looked up at me like she was bracing for rejection. But the moment our eyes met, something in my chest shifted. People say I saved her. The truth is, she saved me first. To me, Lily isn't adopted or foster or any of those labels that make kids feel like temporary guests in their own home. She's just my daughter, my everything. That morning, the morning of the party, she came running into the living room wearing a yellow dress with little white flowers on it. We'd found it at a thrift store the week before, and she'd been begging to wear it ever since. "Mom," she spun around, the skirt flaring out around her knees. "Can I wear this today, please?" I turned, looked at her, and for a second the grief, the bills, the late-night emergency calls from clients, all of it faded. "Of course you can," I said, smiling. "You look beautiful, Lil." Her whole face lit up. She clapped her hands and did another spin, nearly slipping in her socks. Little moments like that were what kept me going. The simple, quiet happiness of a child who finally had a home where no one was shouting or throwing things. While she ran back to her room to find a hair clip, I picked up the gift I'd prepared. A $30 bottle of wine I'd bought that morning on sale. Not exactly the kind of thing my older sister Sarah liked to show off, but it was the best I could do without skipping a bill. I slipped the bottle into a reused gift bag, smoothed down the crumpled tissue paper, and told myself it was enough. We were going to Westlake, to my sister's house, to her world. "Mom?" Lily popped her head out from the hallway, one shoe on, one shoe off. "Does Aunt Sarah's house really have a swimming pool?" The question was asked with the kind of reverence kids usually reserve for amusement parks. "It does," I said, grabbing my keys. "If she says it's okay, you can swim as long as you want." Lily squealed, hopped into her other shoe, and ran to the door. "I feel like today is going to be a really special day," she said, as she skipped down the stairs ahead of me. I wanted to believe that. I really did. If I had known how that day would end, I would have locked the door and thrown my phone in the sink instead. We drove out of East Austin, past the small bungalows and aging apartment complexes, and onto the routes leading toward Westlake. The houses got bigger, the lawns greener, the cars shinier. Lily sat in the back seat, chattering nonstop. "How big is Aunt Sarah's house? Bigger than our whole building. Does Emma have her own room? Does Jake? Do they have a dog? Do you think Grandma will be there already? Do rich people really eat snails?" She talked so much I had to remind her to breathe. "Air, kiddo," I said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Pull some in." She inhaled dramatically, then burst out laughing. I just drove and smiled, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter every time we passed a car that cost more than my yearly income. Sarah and I grew up in the same small house in Ohio. Same parents, same school, same hand-me-down clothes. Somewhere along the way, our lives diverged. She married Miguel, a doctor, moved to Texas first, then convinced our parents to retire down here too. She networked, hosted dinners, climbed whatever social ladder existed in our suburb. I followed my late husband to Austin, learned a trade, and started fixing people's broken heating and leaking pipes. Not glamorous, but honest. We all ended up in the same state again, just different worlds. After about 20 miles, my old 2010 Honda Civic pulled into her neighborhood, past perfectly trimmed hedges and identical modern farmhouse monstrosities. When we parked in front of Sarah's house, Lily's jaw literally dropped. "Mom," she whispered, "why is the house so big?" I turned off the engine and looked up at the 4-bedroom house with a pool in the back, Zillow valued at around $650,000, last I'd checked. the kind of place with a granite kitchen island bigger than my entire living room. It's just a house, I said quietly. People still get hungry and argue inside, same as anywhere. I don't know if I was trying to convince her or myself. We got out of the car. The air felt heavier here, like the HOA had added invisible pressure along with the property taxes. Sarah opened the door before we even reached the porch. "Tiff," she sang out, giving me a quick, perfumed hug that smelled like something I couldn't pronounce. "You made it." Her smile was bright, perfectly practiced. I'd seen that smile on her social media whenever she posed with clients or business partners. "Hi," I managed, holding up the bag. "Brought you something for the table." She took the bag, glanced inside, and in the half second before her expression reset, I saw it. The micro disappointment. The mental comparison to the bottles lined up on her marble countertop. "Lovely," she said, stepping aside. Come in. Everybody's already here." Lily slipped past my leg, eyes wide as she stepped into the huge living room. The floor was polished, the furniture coordinated, the walls decorated with pictures from vacations I'd only ever seen through my phone screen. "Tiffany, Lily!" My dad, Joe, a tall man with more gray hair than he'd admit, came over and scooped Lily up like she was still a toddler. "Sweetheart, I missed you so much," he said, his voice thick. My mom, Susan, was right behind him, smoothing Lily's hair and kissing her forehead. "Come help Grandma cut some fruit in the kitchen, okay?" she asked. Lily nodded eagerly, clinging to their hands. Watching her disappear into the kitchen with them, I felt a little of the tension melt out of my shoulders. At least here, I thought, she's genuinely loved. Emma and Jake, Sarah's kids, ran in a moment later. Emma, 9 years old and blonde like her mother, grabbed Lily's hand and started showing her around the house. Jake, 7, followed behind them, already talking about the pool. As for me, I found myself standing in the middle of a room full of people in nice clothes, holding a gift bag that had already been taken away. I suddenly had no idea what to do with my hands. "Ah, Tiffany," Sarah's voice rang out again. "Come, I want you to meet someone." She steered me toward a gray-haired man in an expensive suit. "This is my sister Tiffany," she said, "and this is Mr. Johnson, the CEO of the company we're partnering with." Mr. Johnson shook my hand, his eyes flicking down to my worn jeans, my cheaper shoes. I recognized that look. I'd seen it from customers who thought they were better than the people who fixed their toilets. "So what do you do?" he asked, polite enough. "I'm a plumber," I said. "I have a small contract with a local company." "Ah." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Important work." It was the kind of important people say when they mean necessary but beneath me. I excused myself as soon as I could, drifting toward the edge of the living room, trying to blend into the wall. A few minutes later, as I was contemplating whether I could sneak out to the porch without anyone noticing, I heard Sarah's voice from behind me. "Marcus!" She caught herself, then laughed. "Sorry, Habit. Tiffany lives in this tiny apartment in East Austin, but still decided to adopt a kid." Her tone was light, but the words cut. A woman beside her gasped softly. "Oh? What does she do that she has the money to raise a child alone?" Sarah let out a little chuckle, enjoying the attention. "She fixes pipes," she said. "Her monthly pay is probably the same as my electric bill." There were a few polite laughs. A couple of people glanced over at me, curiosity and something a little uglier in their eyes. My throat tightened. Part of me wanted to march over there and ask her why she always had to punch down to feel tall. Instead, I swallowed hard and stared at the floor. I told myself it didn't matter, that I'd learned to live with being the poor sibling. I just needed Lily to have a good day. I could absorb the rest. In the kitchen, I heard my mom's warm laugh and Lily's voice chattering about school. For a moment, that sound steadied me. But Sarah wasn't done. Down by the kitchen island, her voice dropped to a conspiratorial murmur as she talked with Aunt Carol and another woman. "Lily?" Carol asked. "She's Marcus, Tiffany's daughter, right?" Sarah sighed dramatically, like she was reluctantly sharing a burden. "She's adopted," Sarah said softly. "Her real mom's some drug addict. Nobody knows who her father is. Mom and Dad just pity Tiffany, you know. Widowed so young, all alone, they pretend to love the kid for her sake." I couldn't make out every word, but I heard enough. Drug addict, nobody knows who the father is, pretend to love the kid. My fingers curled into fists. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from saying anything. "And you just let her run around here?" one of the women whispered. "With all your jewelry?" "I put most things away," Sarah said, "but honestly, I'm still nervous. Who knows what kind of blood runs through her veins? It's strange how a room can feel crowded and empty at the same time. Surrounded by people, I suddenly felt like I was standing outside a window, watching my own family through glass. Before my anger could boil over, my phone rang. A work number. A burst pipe scheduled for Monday. I seized the excuse like a lifeline. "Excuse me," I muttered to no one in particular, slipping out the back door onto the porch. The air outside was cooler, quieter. I pressed the phone to my ear and tried to focus on the client, explaining how water was leaking through their ceiling. As I paced the porch, I told myself, just get through today. Don't start a fight. Don't ruin this for Lily. Inside, meanwhile, the day was already starting to crack. Upstairs, Emma was in her mother's bedroom, pulling Lily inside with the enthusiasm of a kid who loves showing off her world. "Look," Emma said, hopping onto a little stool. She opened a jewelry box sitting on the dresser. "This is my mom's favorite ring." Inside, nestled on velvet, was a diamond that seemed to catch every bit of light in the room. Lily's eyes widened. "It's so shiny," she breathed, leaning closer. She lifted her hand a little, then stopped, fingers hovering just above the sparkling stone. "Mom says it costs $5,000, Emma bragged. "She wears it when important people come over." Lily pulled her hand back, suddenly very aware of her own thrift store dress and scuffed shoes. "It's pretty," she said quietly. A few minutes later, Lily shifted from one foot to the other. Emma, where's the bathroom?" "Down the hall," Jake said, appearing in the doorway. "Go straight, turn right, second door." The house was too big. Lily opened the wrong door once, then twice, mumbling apologies to empty guest rooms before finally finding the right bathroom. By the time she came back downstairs, Emma and Jake were already back in the living room, playing some game on a tablet. None of them mentioned the ring again. Downstairs, Aunt Carol had moved closer to Sarah. "And you're sure nothing will go missing?" Carol asked quietly. Sarah's answer was a half-hearted laugh. "I already put my important jewelry away," she said. "Mostly." Mostly turned out to be one item too short. About 10 minutes later, while I was still on the phone outside, saying, "No, ma'am, you really don't want to wait another week. That leak could rot your subfloor." Sarah went upstairs to change into a different outfit before taking pictures by the pool with her guests. She walked into her bedroom, humming along to the music drifting up from downstairs. She headed toward her closet, then glanced at the dresser. The jewelry box sat where she'd left it. Something in her expression shifted. She walked over, opened the lid, and froze. The diamond ring was gone. Downstairs, I had just finished my call and was sliding my phone back into my pocket. I took a deep breath, forcing a smile back onto my face, and opened the sliding glass door to step inside. The living room felt loud. Music playing, people laughing, glasses clinking. Then a scream tore through the noise. "Where's my ring?" Sarah's voice exploded from the second floor, sharp and raw. The entire house went silent. Conversations cut off mid-sentence, every head turned toward the stairs. I stood near the entrance, my hand still on the glass door, heart thudding in my chest. The scream seemed to shake the drywall. For a second, nobody moved. Glasses hovered midair. Conversations died on half-finished jokes. Somewhere near the kitchen, a spoon clinked against a ceramic bowl and then fell silent. I stepped fully inside, the sliding glass door whispering shut behind me. My brain tried to make sense of what I'd just heard. Maybe she lost an earring, I thought. Maybe one of the kids spilled juice on the rug again. Then Sarah's voice came again, sharper, ragged with panic. "My ring! Where is my ring?" Footsteps thundered across the second floor. Guests looked around at each other, shifting uneasily. A man near the window let out a low whistle. "What ring, Sarah?" he called up, half joking, trying to cut the tension. They all should have stayed quiet. Sarah came down the stairs like a storm in heels. Her hair was slightly mussed. Her face flushed a dangerous red. She clutched the wooden banister with one hand, the other gripping the rail so hard her knuckles turned white. Her eyes swept the room in one hard, frantic sweep. "My diamond ring is gone," she announced, voice loud enough to cut through the music still playing softly from a Bluetooth speaker. "My $10,000 diamond ring. It was in my jewelry box. It's not there anymore." 10? I thought we were at 5. Funny how the numbers climbed when she needed an audience. The living room, bigger than my entire apartment, suddenly felt cramped. People shrank back from her path, giving her space like she was a live wire. I was standing near the doorway, maybe 25 feet away. From there, it still didn't feel real. Just some overdramatic rich people crisis. "Who went into my room?" Sarah demanded. "Who?" No one answered. People glanced at each other, then at the ceiling, then at their drinks, like the answer might be floating in there somewhere. And then Emma made the mistake of telling the truth. She was standing by the kitchen island, fingers worrying the hem of her dress. She stared at the floor, then at her mother, then at the floor again. Mom, she whispered, voice shaking. I showed Lily your room. The words dropped into the silence with the weight of a full confession, even though they weren't one. Sarah turned so fast I thought she might snap something in her neck. Her gaze shot from Emma to the stairs, then swept the room until it landed on Lily. My daughter was standing near the sofa, right next to my mom, still wearing her yellow dress, a glass of juice in her hand. Her eyes were wide, confused, trying to figure out why the grown-ups had stopped pretending everything was fine. Sarah pointed directly at her. Lily, she barked, come here, now. Lily flinched. Her fingers tightened around the glass. She looked up at my mom, like she was asking for permission to breathe. Mom gave her a gentle nudge, stroking her back. It's okay, sweetheart. Just go see what Aunt Sarah needs. Lily walked over, small shoes tapping quietly on the floor, the hem of her dress swaying. She stopped a few feet from Sarah, chin tilted up, trying to be brave. Yes, Aunt Sarah? She asked, voice barely more than a whisper. Sarah stepped closer into her space, too close. You went into my room, she said. Didn't you? Lily nodded, hesitant. Emma showed me the bed and the mirror. And my jewelry box, Sarah snapped. You saw my ring. I felt a shift in the room. All those adults, those polished strangers, turning just slightly to get a better view of the scene unfolding. Like they were at a play and this was the first act. Lily swallowed. It was pretty, she said. But I didn't. You stole it, didn't you? Sarah's voice rose, high and sharp. You took my ring. For a fraction of a second, my brain refused to process the words. I stood rooted to the spot, muscles locking up. Then Lily's face crumpled. I didn't take anything, she stammered, shaking her head so hard her hair clip slid sideways. I promise, I just went to the bathroom. You're lying. Sarah leaned down until she was eye level with my 8-year-old. Her breath hit Lily's face. The ring is gone. You're the only one who went into my room. Where did you put it? Lily's hands started to tremble. Juice sloshed in the glass, then spilled onto the floor. She jolted, looking down at the small orange puddle like it was evidence. I didn't take it, she said, voice breaking. I swear, I don't know where it is. I only looked. Only thieves say that, Sarah snapped. Give it back, now. Something inside me finally snapped free from the ice. I started moving, pushing past people, my heart pounding in my ears. Every step felt too slow, like I was running inside a nightmare, trying to reach her before something terrible happened. Sarah didn't wait. She grabbed Lily by the shoulders and started patting her pockets with both hands, roughly, like she was frisking a criminal. Let's see, she muttered loudly. Did you hide it in here? Or maybe you already slipped it into that little purse? Lily flinched at every touch, trying to squirm away, tears spilling down her cheeks. Aunt Sarah, please, she choked out. That hurts. I didn't. Stay still, Sarah barked. If you didn't do anything, then why are you shaking? Because the grown woman she's supposed to trust is tearing her apart in front of a room full of strangers, I wanted to scream. But I wasn't there yet. Mom got there first. Sarah! My mother's voice ripped across the room like a shot. She stood up from the sofa so fast, her glass clattered onto the coffee table. In 2 strides, she was between them, shoving Sarah's hands away from Lily with more strength than I'd seen in years. What are you doing? Mom demanded, eyes blazing. Sarah recoiled, shocked, but quickly regrouped. Mom, stay out of this, she snapped. My $10,000 ring is gone. That kid took it. That kid was standing behind my mother now, sobbing quietly, pressing her face into Mom's back like she was trying to disappear. Mom turned, wrapping her arms around Lily, pulling her in tight. Lily clung to her like she might be swept away. You don't get to talk about her like that, Mom said, voice low, shaking. Lily would never do that. She is my granddaughter. Dad hurried in from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel, startled by the shouting. What's going on? He asked. Sarah's accusing Lily of stealing her ring, Mom said, not taking her eyes off my sister. She just searched her pockets in front of all these people. Dad's jaw clenched. He stepped up beside my mother, putting himself between Sarah and Lily. That's enough, he told Sarah. His voice was calm, but there was a warning in it. You're scaring her. Scaring her? Sarah threw her hands up. My ring is worth $10,000. $10,000, Dad. Do you understand that? And the only person who went into my room was that kid. What do you want me to think? For a moment, the word kid hung in the air, like she'd spat out something dirty. I finally reached them. I don't remember making a conscious choice to push her. I just remember my hands on her shoulder, the shocked look on her face as she stumbled back a step and my arms going around Lily. I pulled my daughter into my chest, feeling her heart pounding against my ribs like a terrified bird. "What the hell is happening here?" I heard myself say. My voice was louder than I expected, rough around the edges. "What did you do to my daughter?" Lily grabbed my shirt in both fists and buried her face there, sobbing. Her words came out in little shuddering bursts. "Mom, she said I promise I didn't take anything." I stroked her hair, my own pulse thundering. "I know," I whispered into the top of her head. "I know you didn't." Then I turned back to Sarah. "Are you out of your mind?" I asked, every word vibrating. "You just searched an 8-year-old in front of everybody like she's some criminal, without even talking to me first?" Sarah's face twisted, pride and fear colliding. "Oh, here we go," she scoffed. "Of course you're going to play the victim. Your adopted daughter is the only one who went into my room. My ring is missing. Do you want me to ignore that?" "Do you have any proof?" I shot back. "Cameras? A witness? Anything? Or is your proof just that she doesn't share our blood?" Sarah laughed angrily. "Proof? The proof is that the ring was in my jewelry box and now it's not. Someone took it, and it wasn't Emma or Jake. My kids would never steal from me." The implication hung in the air, but yours might. I took a step closer, shifting Lily so she was behind me, but still holding onto my hand. I could feel her shaking. "So you're saying my daughter would," I said quietly. "Because what? Her mom had a drug problem? Because we don't live in a house like this? Because she came with a trash bag instead of a matching luggage set?" A hush fell over the room. Even the music seemed to fade into the background. Sarah's eyes burned into mine. "She's not even really family," she snapped. "You picked her up from God knows where. We don't know what kind of blood runs through her veins." I swear I heard something crack inside me. Behind me, I felt Lily flinch. She didn't understand the whole meaning, but she understood enough. Not really family. My hand tightened around my phone. "Say something like that again," I said, my voice dropping into something cold and unfamiliar. "And I swear I will forget you are my sister." "Why? Because I'm telling the truth?" she shot back. "Mom and Dad are taking a stranger's side over their own daughter." Mom gasped. Dad's face turned a shade of red I'd only seen once before, when he caught someone bullying us as kids. "A stranger?" I repeated slowly. "You just called my daughter a stranger?" I could feel myself teetering on the edge of doing something I couldn't take back. Shoving her, slapping her, anything to make her shut up. Mom must have seen something in my eyes, because she grabbed my arm with one hand and Lily's shoulder with the other. "Sarah, shut up," Mom said, tears spilling over. "Lily is my granddaughter. Family isn't just blood." Sarah stared at her, stunned, like she'd been betrayed. Around us, guests shifted uncomfortably, looking for exits with their eyes, but too nosy to actually leave yet. I took a deep breath, trying to drag myself back from the edge. Fine. If she wanted this to be serious, I'd give her serious. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, held it up so she could see the screen. "Okay," I said. "You think my daughter stole your precious ring? Then let's do this the right way." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "I'm calling the police," I said, thumb hovering over the emergency button. "They can come here and search everyone. Your kids, your guests, me, Lily. They can take statements. Look at the security footage if there is any. That's how adults handle accusations like this." A murmur rippled through the room. Some heads snapped toward me, others toward Sarah. Dad stepped to my side, nodding. "Marcus," he started, then caught himself. "Tiffany is right," he said firmly. "If you're serious about this, Sarah, then we do it properly. Otherwise, you apologize to that child right now." Sarah's bravado faltered for a second. She took a little step back, eyes flicking from my phone to the circle of faces watching her. You're not actually going to call them," she said, a nervous laugh catching in her throat. "Are you crazy? Over a misunderstanding?" "Misunderstanding?" I echoed. "You accuse my kid of a felony in front of half the neighborhood." I pressed my thumb just enough for the emergency dial screen to pop up. The little 911 stared back at us. Someone near the back whispered, "Oh, damn." And that's when we all saw him. At the top of the stairs, Miguel appeared, still in his button-down shirt from work, his hair slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. He was holding something small between his fingers. It caught the light as he started down the steps, every eye in the room tracking that tiny glint. "Sarah," he called out, his voice calm but carrying. My thumb hovered over the call button. Lily's hand tightened around mine. And for the first time all day, my sister looked genuinely afraid. I didn't know it yet, but that scream was the beginning of the end. Miguel descended the stairs slowly, each step echoing through the silent living room. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't frantic. He wasn't shouting like Sarah had been moments earlier. He looked steady. That's what made the entire room lean in. In his hand, held delicately between two fingers, was something small and sparkling. Even from across the living room, even from behind Lily's trembling frame, I knew what it was. Sarah knew too. Her face drained of color as the light from the chandelier caught the diamond. Miguel? She stammered. What? Where did you get that? Miguel stepped off the final stair and held the ring up for everyone to see before lowering his arm and looking directly at his wife. It fell behind the dresser, he said simply. Between the wall and the wood. I had to use a flashlight to see it. It must have slipped when the kids were playing. A wave of whispers rippled through the room. Disbelief, judgment, recognition of what had almost happened. Sarah blinked, her breath catching in her throat. But I checked the jewelry box, she insisted, eyes darting back and forth as if reality might rearrange itself if she looked fast enough. It wasn't there. It wasn't there. Because it never was when you opened it, Miguel said gently, but with a firmness that silenced her. You didn't look anywhere else. A strange, bitter laugh escaped someone in the back of the room. It wasn't cruel. It was stunned. Like even they couldn't believe what they'd witnessed. I looked down at Lily, still trembling against my side. Her small fingers clung to my shirt like they were afraid to let go, even though the danger had passed. I knelt beside her, brushing her hair away from her damp cheeks. See? I whispered. You didn't do anything wrong. But Lily didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't even breathe deeply. Her little body stayed stiff, like she didn't trust relief yet. And then Emma, standing near the kitchen doorway, spoke up in a tiny, guilty voice. Mom, she said, I think I forgot to put it back. All heads swiveled toward her. Sarah stared like she had never seen her daughter before. I showed Lily the ring, Emma continued, voice cracking. I took it out of the box. Then I put it on the dresser. And then Jake said we should go downstairs. I just forgot. Jake, standing behind her, nodded silently, eyes filled with worry. Sarah stared at her daughter, her lips trembling. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. To Lily, to me, to the room. But then something hardened in her expression. She pulled in a shaky breath, straightened her shoulders, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Well, people misplace things, it happens. The crowd shifted. Some gasped softly. Others exchanged looks that said everything. She's really going to pretend this didn't happen. I stood slowly, anger tightening every muscle in my body. Misplace, I repeated, my voice flat, cold. Sarah, you accused my child of stealing. You grabbed her. You searched her. You called her a stranger. You humiliated her in front of every person in this room. Sarah swallowed, avoiding my eyes. It was just a misunderstanding. No, I snapped. A misunderstanding is when you mishear someone or forget an appointment. What you did was character assassination of an 8-year-old girl. Mom stepped closer. Her face was streaked with tears, but her voice was steady. Sarah, she said, trembling with fury and heartbreak, you owe Lily an apology. Dad joined her, jaw set, eyes blazing in a way I'd seen only once, when a neighbor yelled at Sarah when we were kids. You listen to me, Dad said, pointing a finger straight at her chest. I don't care how expensive your house is or who you were trying to impress. You accused a child, your niece, of a crime, and you had no proof, none. Sarah opened her mouth, but Dad's voice boomed over hers. You make your mother and me ashamed today. The room froze. Sarah flinched like he'd slapped her. But even then, even surrounded by evidence of her own cruelty, her pride wouldn't let her back down. She gestured helplessly toward Emma. Well, maybe if Emma had put things away properly. Dad's hand slammed onto the countertop, making several guests jump. His voice roared through the room. Don't you dare blame your daughter for what you did. Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. Miguel wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close, eyes dark with disappointment. Sarah, he said quietly, this isn't Emma's fault, or Jake's, or Lily's. This is on you. Sarah looked at him, stunned, like she didn't recognize her own husband. Mom stepped forward, kneeling in front of Lily, cupping her cheeks. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, Mom whispered. I love you so much. You don't deserve any of this. Dad came beside her, placing a gentle hand on Lily's head. You are our granddaughter, he said firmly. Nothing anyone says can change that. My throat tightened. I had to blink hard to keep my vision clear. Behind them, Sarah stood frozen, caught between shame, denial, and the collapse of her carefully built world. But she still couldn't stop herself. Through clenched teeth, she muttered, But she's not a real... Miguel's head snapped toward her. Don't, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was final. Don't finish that sentence. Silence swallowed the room whole. He took Emma's hand. Get your things. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. Miguel, what are you doing? What I should have done 10 minutes ago, he said. We're leaving. Leaving where? Her voice cracked, panicked. To my parents, he said, until you understand what you did and what it cost. Jake ran to catch up as Miguel led them toward the door. He paused as he passed me, lowering his head slightly. I'm sorry, he said, for everything. I nodded once. Thank you for finding the ring. He nodded back, then walked out of the house with his children, leaving the front door open behind him. The silence in his wake was unbearable. Sarah stood rooted to the floor, a woman whose scaffolding had just been kicked out from under her. Guests began quietly slipping away, murmuring to each other. I can't believe she treated a child like that. Poor Lily. This is going to destroy their family. Did you hear what she called her? Not real family? Mr. Johnson, the CEO Sarah had bragged about for hours earlier, gave her a look of deep disapproval before walking out without saying goodbye. Sarah's eyes darted around, but no one met her gaze. Nobody wanted to be associated with what she'd done. Finally, I turned to her. You owe Lily an apology, I said, each word sharp as glass. Sarah crossed her arms defensively. I said it was a misunderstanding. What else do you want me to say? I laughed, a sound that tasted like bitterness. I want you to take responsibility, I said, for the way you talked to her, for the way you treated her, for the things you said about her blood. Do you even hear yourself? It wasn't, she began. It was, I cut her off. You did this, and instead of apologizing, you're trying to pretend it wasn't that bad. You traumatized a child today because you decided her life story made her guilty. Mom stepped beside me, nodding through tears. Dad's jaw tightened. But Sarah still stood there, arms wrapped around herself, shaking her head. I didn't mean, she whispered. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You did, I replied, and you can't take it back. I gently lifted Lily into my arms, her face pressed against my shoulder, her tears dampening my shirt. We're done here, I told Sarah. Don't contact me. Don't contact Lily. Don't come near us. Tiffany, she stammered. Wait. But I didn't look back. I walked out of her perfect, polished house, past the manicured lawn, past the luxury cars, into the warm Austin evening. Behind me, I heard my parents' footsteps follow, then the door closing. A piece of my childhood shut with it. That night, Lily curled up in her bed, knees tucked to her chest, eyes red and swollen. She didn't want a bedtime story, didn't want cartoons, didn't want a snack. She just whispered, voice trembling, Mom, why does Aunt Sarah hate me? I sat on the floor beside her bed, holding her tiny hand. And for the first time since I became her mother, I had no answer. Trauma doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides. Sometimes it settles quietly into a child's bones and doesn't show itself until much later, at bedtime, at school, in the middle of a moment that should have been ordinary. For Lily, the change started the very next day. She didn't want to go to the park. She didn't want pancakes. She didn't dance around the kitchen the way she usually did when I played our morning playlist. She just sat at the table, legs pulled up onto the chair, arms wrapped tightly around her knees, like she was trying to make herself smaller. Sweetheart, I asked gently, do you want cereal? She shrugged. Do you want to watch cartoons? Shake of the head. Do you want to talk? She shook her head again, but this time her eyes filled with tears. Quiet. Controlled. The kind of crying that breaks you because it's so careful. I knelt beside her chair. You can say anything, Lily, I whispered. Anything. I'm here. Her voice came out so soft I almost didn't catch it. Mom, am I really not your real daughter? My heart cracked clean in half. I pulled her gently into my arms, holding her against my chest. She clung to me with a desperation I hadn't seen since the day she first came home from the foster system. Listen to me, I said, forcing every word to stay steady. You are my daughter, my real daughter. Blood doesn't make family, Lily. Love does. You are mine. You. She nodded, but her little shoulders still shook. For the next week, she asked that question almost every night. Sometimes she phrased it differently. Do I belong here? Will you always keep me? If I make a mistake, will you send me back? Why did she say I have bad blood? Every time I gave her the same reassurance. And every time a new fracture formed inside me. Tiny cracks that spread through the parts of my heart I had once thought unbreakable. But here's the thing about invisible wounds. They don't just hurt the child. They hurt the parent, too. By the third day, I decided to call a child therapist. Someone trained, someone neutral, someone who could help Lily process all the fear and shame Sarah had carved into her. Her therapist, Dr. Patel, had warm eyes and a soft voice that made Lily unclench her shoulders for the first time since the party. During the second session, she asked Lily to draw how she felt. Lily drew the outline of a little girl in a yellow dress. Then she drew a big dark cloud around her, then little dots, tears, then a ring, then a line dividing the paper in half. On one side she wrote, "them," on the other, "me." I had to step into the hallway so I wouldn't cry in front of her. Dr. Patel set up weekly sessions. She explained that Lily wasn't just hurt, she was internalizing Sarah's accusation. Crawling into herself, she called it, trying to become invisible for safety. Hearing it out loud hurt worse than anything Sarah said to me directly. Meanwhile, I noticed other things. When I took Lily to a friend's house, she didn't touch toys unless someone explicitly handed them to her. When offered snacks, she waited until I nodded before taking one. When someone complimented her dress or braids, she looked at the floor like she wasn't worthy of it. She even asked if she could sleep on the couch instead of her bed. "Why, sweetheart?" I asked. She looked down at her hands. "So I don't take up too much space." I had to leave the room and cry in the hallway where she couldn't see me. Around the same time, my phone started ringing nonstop. Most calls were from my parents. Some were from unknown numbers I recognized as Sarah's attempts to bypass being blocked. I ignored all of them. But Mom and Dad kept calling until I finally picked up. "Tiffany," Mom said immediately, voice trembling. "How is Lily? Please tell me she's okay." "She's not," I said honestly. Dad exhaled a shaky sigh. "We're coming," he said. "We'll be there tomorrow." They flew from Ohio the next morning. When they walked into my apartment, Lily ran straight into my dad's arms. He held her so carefully, like she was made of spun glass. "We love you so much," Mom whispered as she smoothed Lily's hair. "We're here now. We're not going anywhere." They stayed for a week. They cooked. They cleaned. They sat through therapy sessions with us. They read her stories at night. They played board games. They hugged her every time she hesitated or second-guessed herself. But most importantly, they never once mentioned Sarah in front of her. In the quiet moments, though, late at night, while washing dishes or sitting on my tiny couch, Mom would bring her up. "Tiffany," she whispered one night, "your sister she's not well. Miguel took Emma and Jake. He won't let her see them until she starts therapy, and she lost her contract. Mr. Johnson pulled out of the deal after the party." I didn't answer. "She calls me crying," Mom continued, tears building in her eyes. "Every night. She knows she did wrong. She wants to apologize." That was when I turned to her sharply. "Mom," I said, "stop." She blinked. "Don't push me to forgive her," I said firmly. "If you keep doing that, I will stop answering your calls." Her lips parted in shock. "Tiffany!" "I mean it." Dad overheard. He walked into the room, put a hand on Mom's shoulder, and said quietly, "Let her have this boundary." Mom nodded weakly, tears falling. After that, she didn't bring up Sarah again. But I could feel the ache behind her silence, the tug-of-war in her heart between two daughters she loved. After my parents left, a new routine settled into place. Therapy twice a week, home-cooked dinners, daily affirmations, gentle activities, small victories, like Lily reaching for a toy on her own without asking permission. And then there was Daniel. My boyfriend wasn't part of the party. He had been visiting family in Dallas that weekend. But when he returned and heard what happened, he came over immediately, dropped everything, took off his work jacket, and sat quietly on the floor with Lily, building a Lego castle until she smiled for the first time in days. Later that night, when she was asleep, he told me something that stayed with me. "When Hannah cheated on me," he said, referring to his ex-girlfriend, "my family kept trying to force forgiveness, kept saying that family fights or that everyone deserves another chance. But you know what forced forgiveness does? It teaches the person who hurt you that the consequences are temporary, that they can hurt you again and again." He looked at me seriously. "You're doing the right thing. Protecting Lily comes first. Always." I didn't know I needed to hear that until he said it. 2 weeks after the incident, when things were starting to feel less raw, but still fragile, I received a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Then the voicemail notification pinged. Miguel's voice came through, tired but warm. "Tiffany, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Again, for everything. I couldn't stop Sarah fast enough. Lily didn't deserve any of that. Neither did you." He took a deep breath. "She's trying. We're in therapy together. She knows she crossed a line she can't take back. I'm not calling to ask you to forgive her, just to let you know she's trying to change." I didn't respond. But I appreciated his tone, his honesty, his restraint. Still, nothing he said changed what I needed to do for my daughter. The apology letters started arriving about a month after the incident. White envelopes with Sarah's handwriting. Some thick, some thin, some with shaky ink, like she'd been crying while writing. I didn't open a single one. I dropped them into a drawer, then into the trash. One afternoon, Lily watched me toss one away. "Mom," she asked hesitantly, "why don't you read Aunt Sarah's letters?" I knelt in front of her, brushing a curl behind her ear. "Because," I said softly, "I'm not ready yet." She nodded, considering that. Then she whispered, "I'm not ready either." That sealed it. No one had the right to rush healing that wasn't theirs to repair. By the second month, Lily was beginning to laugh again. Softly, carefully, but it was laughter. She slept in her bed without asking to move to the couch. She smiled when Daniel visited and joined him in building Lego world after Lego world. She even asked once, tentatively, if she could invite a friend from school over. Slowly, the cracks in her spirit began knitting together. But something in me remembered every single break, every bruise on her heart, every tear she didn't think I saw. Sarah had taken something from her, something fragile and sacred, and even though Lily was healing, I knew it would never be fully restored to what it had been. Some wounds don't vanish. They just soften. And then, one Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Miguel. "She's different now. Therapy is helping her. She wants you to know she's truly sorry. No pressure, Tiffany. Just wanted you to know." I texted back only 4 words. "I appreciate the update." The boundary stood. The door remained closed. 2 months after the party, life in our apartment was finally steady again. Until one quiet evening, when Lily was doing homework and I was stirring pasta on the stove, there came a knock at the door. Soft, unsteady, familiar. My heart froze. I walked to the peephole, and there, standing on the other side, was Sarah. But not the Sarah from the party. Not the perfectly coiffed, self-satisfied woman dripping in perfume and social confidence. This Sarah looked small. Her hair pulled back messily, her eyes swollen, her clothes simple, her shoulders slumped. For a moment, I felt something in my chest twist. Then I felt Lily's small footsteps behind me as she asked, "Mom, who is it?" I didn't open the door. I didn't speak. I just stepped away from the peephole, walked back to the kitchen, and turned the heat to low. Sarah stayed outside for a few minutes. Then her footsteps faded, and the door remained closed. Sarah's footsteps faded down the hallway, leaving behind a long silence that pressed against the walls of my small apartment like a heavy breath. Lily sat at the kitchen table, her pencil hovering above her math homework. She watched me quietly. "Mom," she asked, "was someone there?" I forced my voice to stay steady. "Just someone from the building, sweetheart. Don't worry. Finish your homework." She nodded, accepting it without question. But she studied my face for an extra moment. Kids always know more than we want them to. She returned to her workbook, her little brow furrowed in concentration. And I leaned back against the counter, gripping its edge until my knuckles turned white. Because behind my calm voice, behind the lie I told to protect her peace, something inside me trembled. Seeing Sarah like that, small, fragile, stripped of everything she once flaunted, did something to me that I didn't expect. It didn't make me forgive her. It didn't erase what she did. It didn't soften the memory of Lily crying against my chest. But it made me remember something else. We used to be sisters. We used to share a room full of mismatched posters. We used to steal each other's sweaters and laugh about it. We used to whisper secrets at night. She wasn't always the woman who tore my daughter's world apart. And yet, I turned away from the door. Not because I was cruel, not because I wanted revenge, but because the version of myself who would have opened it no longer existed. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep with her stuffed koala tucked under her arm, I stood in the doorway of her room, watching her breathe. The soft rise and fall of her chest reminded me of everything I fought for, everything I almost lost that day. She looked peaceful. But peace in children is deceptive. It's a fragile thing. A thin layer of calm over waters that are still learning to settle. I walked to the kitchen table, pulled out a folder, and sat down with a deep breath. Inside were documents I'd been gathering quietly over the past month. My will, my life insurance policy, beneficiary forms, emergency guardianship papers. In every one, I had written the same thing. Primary beneficiary, Lily Mackenzie. Secondary, Joe and Susan Mackenzie. Excluded, Sarah Montoya. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it out of protection. Because love, the real kind, the one you fight for, doesn't need shared blood. It needs safety, consistency, boundaries. I signed the last page, the pen moving with a mixture of sorrow and certainty. When I finished, I closed the folder, exhaled slowly, and allowed myself a moment, just one, to grieve the sister I once had. Life went on. Days passed. Therapy continued. Daniel visited often, cooking dinner, giving me quiet smiles that said, "You're doing everything right." Lily began to laugh more openly, her eyes shining again when she drew pictures or played with friends. But some nights, when I locked the front door, my mind returned to that knock, the one from a sister who finally realized she had broken something she didn't know how to fix. Weeks later, another envelope arrived. Thin, white, handwritten with shaky cursive. I didn't open it, but this time I didn't throw it straight into the trash. I placed it in the back of a drawer. Because healing isn't instant, forgiveness isn't owed, but sometimes you keep a door cracked. Not to let the past in, but to let yourself breathe. 3 months after the incident, my parents came to visit again. We took Lily to Zilker Park. She ran in the grass, chasing butterflies and squealing when Dad pretended to be a monster stomping after her. At one point, Mom slipped her arm around my shoulders. "You're doing a good job," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "I'm trying." "And Sarah?" she asked gently. I gave her a look. She nodded. She didn't push. Later, when Lily and Dad were feeding ducks, Daniel sat beside me on a bench. "You know," he said, "people say family is forever, but that's only true if all sides try. You tried. You protected your daughter. That's your job." I rested my head against his shoulder, letting myself lean for a moment. I just wish she had loved Lily the way she pretended to. Daniel shook his head softly. Some people only learn what love is after they destroy it. He wasn't wrong. That evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with sleepy eyes. "Mom?" "Yes, baby?" "Are we safe now?" A lump rose in my throat. "Yes," I whispered. "We're safe, always." She smiled, a real soft smile, and hugged her koala. As I turned off the light, she murmured, "I'm glad I'm yours." I closed the door quietly, leaning against it for a moment as tears stung my eyes. "I'm glad you're mine too," I whispered to the empty hallway. And that brings me to now, to this story, to this channel, to you. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Family isn't defined by blood or houses or status. It's defined by who protects you when the world tells you you're not enough. It's defined by boundaries, firm, painful, necessary boundaries. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is close a door. So now I want to ask you, if you were in my position, would you forgive? Are there lines in a family that should never be crossed? What would you do if the person who hurt your child was your own sister? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear them. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support is what keeps me sharing these moments, raw, painful, hopeful, human. Thank you for listening.